do me a big favor. Do me a big favor. Like, share, subscribe to my channel. That would really help me. So if you hear the sound of my voice, take a moment, like this video, subscribe, share it, um, what have you. I think it's important to do that because we oftentimes we have to try to get our message out in the best way we can, the best way we know how. So if you can help me do that, like, share, subscribe to my channel. That would be extremely helpful to do that, regardless of your political perspective, ideas. Even if you agree or disagree, whatever, do me that big favor. It would be extremely helpful to what I'm trying to do. So, thank you for that in advance. And so, I wanted to really talk about, wasn't too long ago, the night I almost got killed, shot, murdered, whatever. It wasn't too long ago. I would say probably about a month and a half ago, really. Not quite 60 days. So July 4th, 2025 is a date that really stick out to me. And I did document the video. It's somewhere on this channel. If you care to see the live footage that I took of that night, you just really got to search it. Myself, Brother Shout, Nick the Shine. Um, who have all been highlighted one way or another on this channel. We're all present, and it was very interesting. And so, in the sense that before that, who was with us was Kamalo Zane. We was all at the, I guess, CMB headquarters, Community Movement Builders. If you're not familiar with them, look up Community Movement Builders. It's a group organization that uh, we all are a part of. Um, I function as the lead organizer for Community Movement Builders Dallas. That's my group based primarily in Highland Hills. That's where we based at. And so that particular day, again, July 4th, if you know about Highland Hills, if you're familiar with Highland Hills, then you know. All right. And so I'm gonna talk like folks that don't know. Okay, I'm gonna talk like you're not from the city. If you're from the city, then obviously you know there's a thing that happens on July 4th in Highland Hills, whereas the police don't respond, whereas folks come out, particularly the youth, and they just run amok. And I think for the last few years, there have been sort of kind of like a competition between Highland Hills and South Dallas with who could, for the lack of a better term, make the most noise or cause the most damage or can kind of go in some mayhem type situation, right? That's uh, that's what's going on in Highland Hills on July 4th, and it's a thing that's leading up. I remember the previous year in 2024, I have this photo on social media where they burned a vehicle. I think in South Dallas, 2024, they may have burned a church. So it's just things get out of control. Typically, what happens is that the police, the fire department, etc. Is too much, I guess, for them to handle. I guess, in far as how they feel, and so they just kind of stand by and observe. And it's kind of like a GTA 5 situation. Um, and I'm pretty sure it's like that in your city. And if you could, if you listen to the sound of my voice, comment the city that you from, and comment if you have anything similar like that that goes on in your city, right? And so so Highland Hills again is a community in Dallas. There's 20,000 people. Okay, so it's it's more so just a neighborhood. Okay. Um, in my time growing up, Highland Hills was looked at as being part of Oak Cliff. Okay, together in Oak Cliff, a part of Oak Cliff. These young guys, I'm talking about young guys. I'm talking about those born 2003, 2004, 2005 and up see Highland Hills as something that's separate Oak Cliff and kind of like its own individual community, its own individual thing. I didn't grow up with that perspective. Uh, Highland Hills is always part of Oak Cliff, and to me, if you ask somebody my age or somebody older, they're gonna say that Highland Hills is a part of Oak Cliff. That's just what they're gonna say. And so, with that being stated, with that being stated, it's important to mention that always it's important to, especially at night, to be safe and secure. I think that's important, and so that's why we started more so patrolling the community. And I want you to keep that in mind that we have actively patrolled this community, Highland Hills, on and off since 2019, first starting in the Greens and Highland Hills, and eventually over near the Pinks, kind of where we are at now. And we've been organizing in the Pinks for the past 11 years, committed so much so that College Park, formerly known as College Park, was renamed after our mentor, Fahim J. Minka, and it's now called Fahim J. Minka Community Park in Highland Hills. And from my perspective, within Oak Cliff. If you ask anybody, they're gonna say it's Oak Cliff. Anybody older, obviously the young folks say Highland Hills is separate. All right. So with that being stated, with that being stated, uh, we was we were at the headquarters, right? Well, before that, we went to the Pinks, right? We went to the Pinks to talk with people about, sort of kind of their perspective on the date, July 4th, what it meant to them, what their expectation was for that night, etc., and what would potentially happen. Uh, and so we was talking to folks. Some of those videos I do have on this channel. So we was talking to people, and we talked to a few people, and obviously they showed us their fireworks. We talked to a couple people, and some of the people we were familiar with, and they showed us their fireworks. They told us about what they were expecting to happen, and they was like, "Yeah, y'all got to come back at 10 o'clock. Y'all got to come back at 11 o'clock. Y'all got to come back at 1 o'clock." That sort of thing. Keep in mind, in the Pinks, is an apartment complex. I want to let you know that there's four separate apartment complex: Pinks, the Browns, the Whites, the Greens. So we primarily at this point, this time, have been in the Pinks. The Pinks, of course, has its own individual security. All right. The security in the Pinks um, is an armed formation. It's an armed group. And typically there's two, sometimes three armed officers in the Pinks. Sometimes, okay. This particular day, they became well prepared, and there may have been 15 to 20 officers. You know what I'm saying? They all armed. Some of them walk around with paintball guns, but all of them are legitimately armed. Okay, all of them are legitimately armed, paintball guns, whatever. It was a mass group. I know this apartment has to at least be spending some money on their security, trying to keep the gate functioning, trying to keep security present. All of that I know costs quite a bit, and so at this particular point, we were in the back of the complex. One of the residents began to pop firecrackers or whatever, and a contingency group of the security came to that group, and I guess us included, right? Uh, and was trying to ask questions or whatever. One of my guys was armed. I won't say their name. One of them was armed at the time. Um, and so they we kind of had words with that, and so they were kind of being aggressive. Their perspective, I think, was trying to make sure that they try to keep the riffraff down for the day. I think that was their perspective, and so that was abnormally more aggressive than what they typically are. Okay, typically we can go on property. Again, it's armed security, and we can do any type of function that we desire. This particular group probably started in the Pinks probably 2021 or 2022. And so it changed ownership, and the goal of ownership obviously looks like was to have some sense of security, but also they're supposed to beautify the area and or the complex itself and develop it to whereas it looks nicer and more presentable versus windows busted out versus holes in the wall versus rats, roaches, that sort of thing. Okay. That's something that we'll eventually look into as time goes along here in the near future. But so they went to a group of young teenage girls, and what happened essentially is one of my guys, again, the guy that was armed, had some words with him about it. And so, to make a long story short, after we addressed it, had some words with him, you know, we eventually just left the property, right? We didn't want to really try to agitate that too much because we knew in our mind that our plan was to try to be present, at least in the area after the fact. So we left the apartment complex again. That some of the confrontation of that is, or the aftermath of the confrontation, I do have on video on this channel. Again, like, share, subscribe to my channel. If you have some similar experiences in your community, let me know. All right, let me know because I don't. I definitely want to think that this is something just a Highland Hills, a Oak Cliff, or a Dallas situation, right? I know this is something that's going on, phenomenon that's going on around the country in communities uh, where folks reside. So anyway, um, so we go back um, to the headquarters, community movement builders headquarters is where we go back to. I pretty much stayed there. I had an interview to do with a brother. And he was the focus of his interview was to ask me about at least the start of the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, right? Obviously, there is some, there's different perspectives, right, on the start of the Huey P. Newton Gun Club, and my perspective is that of from a guerrilla mainframe perspective. Okay, this is not to criticize or challenge anyone's else's perspective, but I want to kind of give our perspective as far as guerrilla mainframe, which is uh, what was taught to us by Mandela Tayumba, which is more of an African socialist perspective, working class socialist perspective, scientific socialism under the ideas of Kwame Ture and uh, Kwame Nkrumah, excuse me, and Sekou Toure, right? So that's the perspective where we was taught, and that's the perspective that we aligned ourselves, and also principally George Jackson. That's how we aligned ourselves more so within the Huey P. Newton Gun Club. And so I was interviewing with a brother talking about that. In the meantime, uh, Kamalo Zane, he left. He was like, hey, I'm not going to stick around. Uh, I'm going to go ahead and leave. Kamalo Zane, he left. He goes back home. He doesn't stay too far, right? So it essentially left. But shout other folks that also left. But shout myself, Negative Shine. It left us present at that particular time. But shout and Negative Shine, they leave. They go to the community. I stay at the headquarters because I'm preparing to do this interview to talk about the Huey Newton Gun Club, the start of the Huey Newton Gun Club. I can't talk about anything that's going on with the gun club now, currently, or anything after 2016. I was not present, but I am part of the start of it. So I want to put that disclaimer out there. With that being stated, I do the interview. It takes some time. It takes an hour, hour and a half, something like that, at least an hour. I'm getting some questions. Different folks from across the streets coming up. They want some of our, you know, want some things, some items from us. Some items we normally give out, toilet paper and diapers and things. They was looking for items. I had to tell them to hold off, but shout and niggas shine, they waiting, they going back and forth into the community. I'm assuming that they talking to people. I'm assuming that they having some sort of dialogue, because that's the thing that we have been doing was holding dialogue with the folks in Highland Hills at the particular time. And we did it, as I stated, we did it that day, but we had did it many days previously. And we found that, hey, if we are in the community, we can have these conversations with folks, and it's important, right, to kind of get the perspective of the community, because oftentimes these people voices are not heard, especially social media wise, especially politically, especially downtown, especially as relates to anything that's good. Most time we hear about these folks in the community is usually something negative. So we want to kind of change that, right? We want to change the narrative. And so that's why we've been doing these interviews, right? And so I'm assuming that that's what they're doing, right? They're doing these interviews, but they're getting it a more raw version. Why? Because it's nighttime. Why? Because it's July 4th. Why? Because it's, folks are outside. Folks are, you know, the energy is, the spirit is high, right? That's what that's more so my thought process was more so. Um, with that being stated, with that being stated, um, eventually I'm done with the interview. We at the house, nigga Sean, but a shout. We all at the house at the headquarters. We talking. It's like, yeah, you want to go back out? In their mind, before that, they kind of saw themselves as kind of done. I think. Of course, since I missed most of the time they was out there, I wanted to go out there, and so I was like, hey, let's go ahead and go out there, which they was cool with it. Especially nigga Shine, he likes action, so we jump in Buttershot's vehicle and go around the corner. Keep in mind, this is like, if you had to walk, it was like a 5 minute walk. Okay, 10 maybe 10 minute walk, right? That's not far at all. If you have to drive, it's like 2 minutes, right? So we drive. They're supposed to be meeting up with this brother. I got the brother's interview uh, in the Pinks. I got his interview that they did previously, part of it. We were supposed to be meeting up back up with him. It didn't work out that way because he wasn't present um, at the time. So they was looking for him. They was looking for him, and we said, you know what, we're gonna get out and we just gonna go find him on our own, right? So I get out the car and I'm recording, right? And that's when you see the image. I'm recording, um, and what I notice is that bullets were flying from in front of me. And this is on Highland Hill Street. This is right on the street where the Pink's gate is on Highland Hills. And I noticed that the bullets are flying in front of me. How do I know? Because I hear bullets hitting the gate. It's a metal gate, and I hear the pinging, ping, 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 ping. And so keep in mind, I'm recording. So then I decide to get behind Shout's vehicle. So I had a decision to make. Either one, I could have um, probably got back in the vehicle, or I had to make a snap decision to get behind. So I chose to get behind the vehicle versus getting back immediately into the vehicle. And so when I did that, um, there was a vehicle with a gentleman driving that was coming from what would have been in front of us and stopped to my left. He got out of the vehicle and he started shooting back at the group that was shooting in our direction. I think possibly his vehicle got hit. Again, this part is on vehicle. You can barely see him shooting back. However, just because, uh, just because I didn't really show it as much because I was trying to position myself to move right. And so when I noticed him get out of his vehicle, and he started shooting back towards the front, towards the group that was initially sending rounds in our direction. I moved to my right and got actually up under the vehicle. When I did that, I noticed Negative Shine to my right, and he was on the ground and he was partially under the vehicle. He was a little bit more exposed than I was at that time, but he was to my right on the other side. So basically, I'm at the rear and he's on the right side of the vehicle, near the curb, basically kind of taking cover. Basically, he wasn't able to move too far. Basically, he got out the vehicle, closed the door, and was just outside there. But the shot was on the inside of the vehicle, in the driver's seat. Because of the commotion that happened, he wasn't able to get out because it was just too much at one particular time. It was switches, I think that was going on. If you know what switches are, that's basically what the situation was. So essentially, what occurred next was, um, I'm hearing bullets hit hit the top of the vehicle, like hit the back part where I was at. I took later took a footage. It's on this channel. I later took footage of the aftermath. But so where I was positioned at when the guy got out of his car, started firing back towards the group that was standing in the front, I noticed that if I hadn't moved, that there was 5 bullet holes in that one spot, right in that one area, and I noticed that if I hadn't have moved, and I did hear it as soon as I did move, that I potentially, very likely, would have gotten hit by at least by one, more likely at least two of those bullets. Maybe not all 5 would have hit me, but at least two for sure would have hit me. And I was kneeling, so understand that I was kneeling. I wasn't standing. I was kneeling. So it would have been a very easy shoulder shot, head shot, uh, whatever, right? Um, Coincidentally, I did leave my phone, and that's also noticed in the vehicle. I left my phone because I was just trying to take cover. 3 minutes later, we did eventually go back and retrieve my phone, and that's how the video got circulated, various sites and blogs, what have you. But I just wanted to discuss that because I felt like that was the day that, one of the few days. There's been a couple of other times, situations in my life where I felt like I nearly lost my life, potentially. Definitely would have been in the hospital with a serious GSW, gunshot wound. And luckily, and thank God that that didn't occur. And because I moved as soon as I saw the guy shooting, that I was able to ultimately not be shot. And Negative Shine wasn't shot. And we did notice a couple of bullet holes did actually travel from the rear of the vehicle, um, into into Shaw's car, and land in the seat. And so what I didn't fully explain, and I apologize, there was a group that was shooting from the front that we did notice. There was a guy to our left that was shooting at the back at the people in the front, but there was also shooters that were in the back that we was not aware of. So basically, what happens? The people in the front and the people in the back were shooting at each other, and we were just in the middle. That's basically what happened. That's basically a situation. Um, Nobody that I knew of it was not reported of anybody being shot or anything of that nature, so I wasn't aware of that. But I came very close. We all came very close at the time. We all came very close. Fortunately, we was able to avoid it, and so that's great. So do me a big favor, as I stated, like, share, subscribe to my channel. Like, share, subscribe. Uh, Again, this is just kind of what I've noticed just being in the Highland Hills community. This is what I noticed, July 4th, 25. This is what potentially happened to me. And I was told not to go in on this particular day. So I was given a warning. Fortunately, I was able to uh, avoid the situation. So like, share, subscribe to my channel. It's been extremely helpful. And let's continue to tell these stories. Peace, power, and prosperity.